SC Playbook EPL edition, rapid fire edition as we get ready for a double game week. Arsenal assets starting to have us rubbing our hands together after the clean sheet on the weekend. And with Matty Yerman over in Bangkok, we thought who better to get in than the boss. Timmy Williams, fresh off 6 hours of podcasting last week to get ready for the NRL, probably a little bit more than that, has joined us to squeeze in some EPL as well. How are you, Timmy?
I'm well, mate. Yes, 7-hour NRL season preview last week. The EPL didn't take a back seat, though. I made sure I was on top of everything there. And with the call-up this week, I'm glad I did. And, yeah, from a former Socceroo to a former Kuma Tiger under-12 sensation, it's a pretty sideways move. So happy to be stepping into the seat for Matty Yerman. And, you know, we pride ourselves here at SC Playbook. As you know, you've come to realise, mate, and you've been a big part of it, but it's a short turnaround in between game weeks. There's a new round starting tomorrow morning, but we'll always get a podcast out. And, mate, you're the one really stepping up here. You're in your offices at work, which is a studio, to be fair. So, good to be along.
Yeah, we're convenient for situations like this. There's no doubt about that. Reminder, SC Playbook League is still there. It's still open. You can find all the details on our social media pages and $2 to become a subscriber. NRL season just around the corner. NBA getting to the business end as well as us. We've still got 14 game weeks to go after this one, Timmy. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Head to scplaybook.com.au. The Discord is open as well. A reminder to go and find all the information on that if you haven't done already. It was a good week for you, Timmy. 151 points. Gabriel there, you had Palmer in ahead of everybody else and Erling Haaland back on the score sheet for us, which was nice as owners.
Yeah, really good week. And I've been on, this might be my third appearance of the season, and I think every week I've come on, I've absolutely sizzled the week before. It's not been intentional, I swear, and you'd be forgiven for thinking that perhaps it was, but it's just worked out accordingly with the quick chat turnaround. So 151 points. The only thing, and I don't want to sort of have a whinge about it because, it could have been far worse, but I had the captaincy on Palmer. And then Bruno scored that late goal. I think it was about the 82nd minute, which just put him into VC loop range. And I set my alarm to get up and check how he went, to see if I was looping or not. And I went, 21 points, no brainer. And I woke up, saw Palmer, saw the hat-trick, and I went, no. But look, nonetheless, for a 21-point loop, I can't complain too much. So, 151 points, and I'm up into 650th or 664 I am, sorry. So sitting nicely.
Mate, before I hand the reins over to you, I'm asking you at a bad time because he's just come off a game where he's been fantastic. How have you felt investing in Pub? Because he really has split the community down the middle as to whether he's somebody that's reliable enough to bring in or someone that is so injury prone that, the misses are too often to stay around for the hits, if you know what I mean.
It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I brought him in. I didn't bring him in sort of straight away when he came back. I let him get some game time under his belt and build into sort of the 90-minute performances. And this time of season, it's been okay because I've got so much squad value and so much depth in my team. I've also been really good on the trade, sort of knowing, you could see from very early on that there weren't a heap of trades to play with, so I've been very conservative with those. But my team, as most coaches out there by this point who have sort of played things all right with break-evens and cash rises and falls, it's good. So I've been able to have options if he's been rested, which has been the big one. In terms of injuries and the risk there, it's Cole Palmer. I brought him in for Chelsea's good run that they're in the middle of at the moment, and if there's an injury there or a resting here or there that sort of does occur and is inevitable at times with Cole Palmer, he belts out these 34 points where he's just in everything and can go large. And that kind of, to me, sort of alleviates any risk of injuries or restings or these sorts of things. I think earlier in the season when squad value wasn't as high and we had weaker benches and you had to maybe rely on an auto emergency who was a cheapie at $5 million, it's risky. But this time of season, I've been pretty happy to have him.
I'm asking that question from a very selfish place because he's very much on my radar this week. But we'll get to all of that, Timmy. I'm going to hand the reins over to you as the higher performing of us, and you can take us through the rest of the way.
Yeah, so look, I'm the high performing super coach, mate, and I like to think of myself as a super coach expert. I'm not an EPL expert. I love the game. I followed it for a long time, but you are the EPL expert. Pardon me. So I feel like, it's sort of yin and yang, and we can work really nicely here. But the key to this is, mate, that I ask the key questions and you answer them, and then we people can sort of make their thoughts and their opinions and trades off the back of that. So I'll take the reins. We'll start with, it is going to be a bit of a rapid fire 1-2 day on the quick turnaround, but we go to that Man City and Liverpool game. I'm a Liverpool supporter, a bit of a heartbreaker, and heaps to come out of it. Man City finding a bit of form, a late winner there. Haaland obviously scoring late. Shirky robbed of a goal by the ref there, which was pretty brutal for anyone who owned. I sold a week or two earlier because I'd had enough of the rotations at Man City, which had started to come back in. Mate, I suppose, what do you make of all that? And the second question is, rotations at City, at Chelsea, at Arsenal, even Liverpool with someone like Ekitike and European football and all these things happening, they're getting harder to manage.
Yeah, and they're all going to make it late into Europe by the looks of things as well. 4 of the 5 teams in the Premier League have avoided the first playoff round, which is good in the short term, right? It means less rotation over the next few weeks. So, as we have been saying basically for the last 2 months, I think the biggest advice is hold your trades until you need them for these blank weeks, and more importantly for the double weeks that we're about to have. Because you're throwing darts at a dartboard, with the exception of you guys like Haaland and Gabriel, who are playing at the extremities of the pitch and are going to be selected because they're not doing as much running as the midfield players. You really are shooting fish in a barrel at the moment in terms of who is going to be rested. So you've got to be awake, alive, looking at team sheets as they come in an hour before kickoff, and then basing your trades off who's got the best. Like, fixtures are going to come into it over the rest of the way. Liverpool now is a really interesting one because they've played this game against City. They now don't play anybody inside the top 5 until Manchester United in game week 35. So that's a real interesting one to keep an eye on. Villa are in a similar situation. So if you've fallen off some of their guys and you're looking for pods particularly, like, it could be time to steer back towards Morgan Rogers and keep an eye on how Tammy Abraham's travelling as well, because he's hit a solid stretch of form so far since coming back to the Premier League. They're the two with the most easily identifiable draw, and you're bringing Arsenal assets in this week for obvious reasons, with Brentford and Wolves coming before we hit the next trade deadline. But yeah, there's a couple of different things to keep an eye on, that's for sure, Timmy.
Shout out to Matty Cash, my pod player that I bought in last week for a whopping 3 points. I had the great Patrick Dorgu, and people sold him off when he had a couple of poor weeks, and I stuck strong, and he went bonkers. So to wake up to the news that he was injured a couple of weeks back, it was devastating. But luckily, I got a stack of value for him. So, like with before trades this week, I've got $7.5 million in my bank, 17 trades. So, as you said, mate, I'm prepping for the back end of the season where we have blanks, we have doubles. Like, I've got 5 boosts in the bank, which realistically I probably won't use, barring maybe a blank week if I need players on deck. And I feel a lot of super coaches out there are going to be short on trades if having any left. So ready to go bang, bang, bang at that point. Now, mate, you mentioned the double game weeks and blanks. They are starting to come to the fore a little bit in the back end of the season. Arsenal with a double game week this week. There's a few others that look likely or have been confirmed, sort of thing, moving forward. What are they for now?
Well, so this is the only one we know that for sure because of the Carabao Cup final that game week 31 will be blanks for Arsenal, Palace, City and Wolves. Now, Arsenal and Wolves getting the double game week this week to replace that fixture. We don't know when City and Palace's game will be rescheduled to. Looking at past years and where things have happened, it'll likely be game week 33 or 36, but that all depends on how deep City get into European competition. If they get knocked out early, it'll be that early fixture. If they make it all the way to the final, it'll be right towards the end of the season that they'll be making that change. So you got a bit of time to sort of adjust and be ready for that sort of stuff. It's not going to catch you by surprise, but after this week, game week 31 is the one you're going to be focused on with the blanks, particularly for those with a high amount of Arsenal assets like I have. I'm very much planning my trades for the next 5 game weeks around, okay, how do I maximize how many Arsenal guys I've got in my team this week to how can I get to a place where I've only got 3 or 4 by the time that blank comes around. That becomes doubly difficult when you're looking at guys like Haaland, potentially Foden for those who are still holding, Mark Gahey for Manchester City as well. Palace assets at the moment are dirt. I would be suggesting that you get rid of them as soon as possible, particularly after the games. I mean, you can make an argument you can hold out against these games against Burnley and Wolves. There has been a slight turnaround, but their form has not been really strong enough to justify holding them any longer than that, particularly with a difficult run late in the season. That's the summary I'll give you there, Tim.
Yeah, no, it's a good summary, mate. You've done well. And one line that stood out there is that ahead of these blanks to come in the future, we have time to adjust, but it is vital that we're ready for it because, I mean, if you're over invested in Arsenal and City assets, which the reality is most of us are going to be, you could be absolutely decimated in those weeks, especially if you're short on trades. And if you are short on trades, you might be using them to get Arsenal players out that you want to keep long term. So, yeah, must be ready and looking ahead to that. That segues nicely, mate, into the most traded players this week. And Arsenal being on the double, and the beauty of the double is that the first game of it, funnily enough, the last 2 games of the round, but they play Friday, 7 a.m. Australian East Coast time. That's against Brentford. They then play again almost a full week later on Thursday on the 19th, a 7 a.m. game. So, again, the beauty being that there's every chance that a lot of these players do get the double in. My question before we get into the specific players, how many Arsenal players are too many this week?
So I'm looking at things, and without giving away the trades, I think I'm going to be sitting at 6 ahead of this week. I think that's a pretty healthy number. You're looking at guys that you're then able to move out with rotations and different stuff. So obviously you got your high value guys like your Gabriels, your Declan Rices that you want to be keeping in there. Even David Raya, I think there's an argument to be keeping him until maybe you're looking to flip him in the blank week and see if there's a defence that's going to have a nice, easy run home for you. But those guys like your Salibas, your Calafioris, that are going to see some time out, your Timbers as well, they're the guys that you'd be bringing in short term to then look to make some cash on and then move out pretty quickly. I think Gabriel, that's basically the extent of the list. Gabriel, Rice, and potentially Raya are the ones that you want to be absolutely locked down on, and then the rest of them can be moved in and moved out after this week.
Yeah, and like I said, there's I think 6 max.
Yes.
And if you're going 6 or more than 6, I said because of the blanking coming later on in the season, the reality is we're trading 1 to 2 of them out at some point anyway, and probably sooner rather than later. You add in rotation risk, all sorts of things that could happen. So I've got 5 at the moment. I'm umming and ahhing whether I add a 6. Then, mate, your input to come very, very shortly is going to influence that. But I'm currently sitting on 5, 6 max, I think. And I think you're right. We're not going to sit here and knock anyone getting a Raya, a Timber, a Gabriel because they should play the double. They're locked in there for their 90 minutes, etc. Pretty safe. One that interests me a lot. Well, I shouldn't say like less than most, but it's the week's most traded in player, and it's Victor Gyökeres. And coming off a 19-pointer, mate, my concern is, and this is where I'm keen to get your intel, he hasn't played 90 minutes since week 9. His recent weeks, sure, he's been on fire when on the field. He's scoring, assisting, doing all sorts of things, but 30 minutes, 76 minutes, 32 minutes, 57 minutes. He's dirt cheap at 5.6 mil. He's got a -3 break even. There's money incoming. Lots of positives, but what do minutes look like moving forward? We know that Bukayo Saka is under an injury cloud, but there's also chat that, unless I've missed something very recently, that he's a chance to sort of come back to the fore and play again, whether it's for the first game of the double or the second game of the double. Talk to us about Gyökeres.
He's a really interesting, and you're right, Tim. I think it's unlikely that you get 90 minutes out of him in any situation, whether he starts the game or comes off the bench as he did on the weekend, right? So it is a high risk play. The one thing I would say is that after the performance of Gabriel Jesus, who was dragged after an hour against Sunderland and didn't look particularly lively, he's a fantastic player, Gabby, but he's not 100% fit.
Mm-hmm.
Gyökeres is probably the option that Mikel Arteta is more likely to go with, at least in the first game. And then if he performs there, there's no doubt he'll get the start against Wolves as well. So you are flipping a coin, basically. It is a boom or bust move. It's a risk given the strikers I've got in my squad at the moment. I am looking more likely to take than not, but you can also make the argument that Kai Havertz has come in and played well. Maybe there's an option that he plays him up front. The answer I'm talking you through and giving you in a very unhelpful way is that I'm not 100% sure, Tim. Like, it's I think he's going to start that first game against Brentford, who have been playing better, haven't been particularly solid defensively. And if he gets another goal there, he'll lock himself in for the Sunderland game. So you are taking a risk, but if that's the sort of thing you're looking for at this stage of the season, I'd be urging you towards it rather than running away.
And like adding to that, Arsenal will play in the last two games of the round. We're not going to have the beauty of a team sheet to see if he's starting or not. So, look, the thing about it is they've got the double. He's going to get minutes. At the minimum, you'd imagine he gets his 90 minutes across the two games. He'll make money. He can explode. He could come out and play 90 in both games. So there are lots of reasons to buy, but if you're looking to go against the grain of the most traded-in player, well, I can see a big argument not to do it, especially if you are already overstocked on Arsenal assets. Mate, Martin Odegaard. Talk to me. I'm still an owner. Are we going to see him or not? Because you mentioned the roller coaster of Cole Palmer earlier. Martin Odegaard, he's a hell of a roller coaster and doing my head in.
Yeah, he's one that I would be moving away from, Tim, just because of the depth that Arsenal have in a similar position. Rice is locked in there. Martin Zubamendi's coming off a goal. He's playing a more balancing role, which I think Arteta is preferring. And Kai Havertz has been superb since he's come back from injury. Those are the three guys he's competing from, and they're all just performing better than him at the moment. So he's one I'd be steering you clear of, just because I don't think he's going to get starting minutes over the near future until they're sort of deep in Champions League action.
Yeah, they've got a sickening amount of depth, and my Odegaard play, it's not helping me at all. So again, mate,
I
just
felt
the
it
other
early in the season.
Yeah, you mentioned Cole Palmer at 10 mil, the second most traded in player this week. 34 points last week, a -9 break even. Fixtures coming up. He has Leeds, Burnley, two of the better matchups you can get this season, into Arsenal and Villa, which gets tougher. But the next 2 weeks, certainly, is he a must or not? Because there's also every chance that he's rested for 1 or 2 of the next 2 weeks, and then he's saved up for Arsenal, Villa, Newcastle, European football, all that sort of stuff. What are you thinking as a current non-owner?
I'm actually steering towards no move. Like, he is one of the ones I'm considering this week ahead of just because when he does, and this is where the eye test can trick you, because when he does play, he is so phenomenal. Like, he's involved in everything. He got started on the right-hand side by Liam Rosenior on the weekend. He's just drifting in, creating opportunities. When he's in that sort of form, the Club World Cup final sort of form, he is completely unstoppable, but he is not reliable. He's not someone, as you've said, the ride is fun when it's on the upswing of the roller coaster, but it is coming down far too often. There's every chance that, he's still not fully fit. And, he hasn't played, I don't think, 4 consecutive games for Chelsea this year, at least in the starting lineup. So that's a concern as well. And if you're looking for someone long-term at that price, you're having to move someone like a Jared Bowen for me. And I don't think, despite the fact you're looking at two teams with very contrasting ambitions at the moment, I can't move the guy in who's performing very well but inconsistently to the guy that is banging out a score every second or third week and getting the opportunity to do that week on week.
Yeah, 34 points in 61 minutes. That hat-trick was in about 38 minutes or something absurd. We know he can do it, but I don't think it's a clear-cut thing. I think it's, to me, they play the first game of the round tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m. Set your alarms. If he's named to start, I think just get him.
Yeah.
But if he is benched or for whatever reason or rested, just naturally avoid. I think it's as simple as that for me with Cole Palmer. Alrighty, mate, most traded out players. We won't spend too much time on it. We do have to make some moves. You've got to get back to work. I've got to get back to work. I need to get this podcast out so people can listen before tomorrow morning. But the one I did want to touch on, again, it's another Arsenal player in Bukayo Saka, 7.9 mil. Under an injury cloud, but it does sound like he's close to getting back. You mentioned the depth that Arsenal have. Are they extra cautious on him? As I said, they don't play their first game until he's had a decent turnaround. First game is Friday at 7 a.m. Second game is the following week on Thursday. What are your thoughts for the Bukayo Saka owners? Hold or sell?
I think he's a hold. I think, Tim, it's, particularly if you've got assets up front already that you can move in because of him. The Brentford game's going to be difficult for Arsenal regardless. Brentford's defence has not been the best recently, but this is a big test at home. They're going to be right up for it. And then they've got this FA Cup tie over the course of the weekend against Wigan. I can see a road that Mikel Arteta goes down where he starts Saka in that game, gives him 50-odd minutes, and then hopes that he's fit enough to come back for the Wolves game, because the guys he's competing for position with, like Leandro Trossard, came back and assisted on the weekend, but he's still not fully fit either. So there is going to have to be some rotation there, which means he's more likely to play than not at some stage. I guess what owners are hoping is that he doesn't just play that FA Cup game and then come off the bench or get limited minutes in the other two. Look, if you're keen on an Arsenal asset over this, and you have trades, I'd almost be pushing people towards just move him to Gyökeres quickly. And this is, for those flush with trades.
Yeah.
Move him to Gyökeres or someone that is more likely to start. Gyökeres particularly is going to be gaining you cash if he gets on the field. You'll be able to get him back to a price where Saka, barring a goal off the bench after 70 minutes, you're not going to lose too much there. So I think that's a left field point of view, perhaps not the mainstream one, but Saka, I can't be sure on his minutes whatsoever. I'm less certain on him than I am on Gyökeres, for example.
All right, well, that segues into our trades nicely. And here is what I'm going to do. I'm currently sitting on my hands. I won't be trading. Off the back of your sound advice, Maestro, I am going to set an alarm for Friday, 6 a.m, team list time, Arsenal v Brentford. If Saka is thereabouts, I'll just hold. But if Gyökeres is named to start, Saka is not. I'm just going to make that move and follow your sound advice. If Saka were to start or Gyökeres was to bench, I reckon I'm just going to sit on my hands and not make trades. But by all reports, and I mean your reports, that's what we're expecting. Saka off the bench at the best, and Gyökeres to start. So that's what I'm looking at. It'd keep me at 5 Arsenal players naturally, because I'd be going an Arsenal to an Arsenal, which I'm fine with because squads aren't that big. There's a lot of resting, so I don't want to overcommit to Arsenal. So that'd be my only move for this week, barring any changes. What about yourself, mate?
I've got a really interesting situation up front, Timmy, where I'm holding Estevao and Jean-Philippe Mateta. Don't ask me how I've got myself in that situation, but that's where I'm sitting. So Mateta is moving out. Gyökeres is the easy move in for me this week. It leaves me at 6 Arsenal players and has me in a spot to hopefully gain something a little bit more upward moving towards the end of the season. My second thought is Bowen straight for Palmer. I need to see that Palmer's starting, though. So, like you, tomorrow morning, I will be up 6 o'clock to look at those team lists, make sure that Palmer is starting it, and then make the move potentially. But I'm more inclined to hold Jared Bowen at the moment, just for the consistency of minutes that he's getting over cold Cole at the moment.
You love Jared Bowen, don't you?
I do love Jared Bowen. He's and I tell you what, Manchester United visiting the London Stadium, I know it's an improved version of Manchester United, but boy, does that look like a game they're going to drop points in, or at least give themselves a serious scare, and Bowen's the man to do that to them.
Mate, in terms of skippers this week, naturally people are going to flock to Arsenal. Shout out to the MVP of the season, and that is Harry Tyrer, the Everton goalkeeper, who I don't know what part of the world he's in. I don't care. All I know is that he's not in the Premier League.
I
Started the
think he's
season
in
with him.
Coventry, Tim.
There you go. So he's still in the UK, and I hopefully he's killing it down there as well in Coventry. But mate, Everton do play in the first game of the round that Wednesday, 6:30am kickoff. So anyone using Tyra as their loop will make it tougher. Unless you've got someone else who's not active this week, it's probably just a straight on the Arsenal boys. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, and because of that, I'm going the safe option. I'm going to give Gabriel. I reckon Arsenal are going to score from a set piece at least once against Wolves, certainly, and they should pick up a clean sheet or two. So Gabriel's the safe option. I've got VC on Gyökeres just in case anything falls over, but I think that's not going to matter.
Yep, fair enough, mate. For myself, I've got a VC on Bruno Fernandes. Also that early Wednesday, 7:15am fixture against the Hammers, as you said. Hammers finding a bit of form, but does bode pretty well for Bruno. So, look, I'd probably have to look for a non-active player if he were to go nuts. But I'm going to go, I think, with Declan Rice, and should get his 90 minutes, both games. We know he can go big. He'll find the back of the net, couple of assists, and I'll be laughing all the way to the top 100 on the run home. Maestro, that'll do us for the podcast this week. You brought us in. I'll take us out. Thank you for all your work this season. Matty Ehrman will be back on deck. We've got a bit of a break now, don't we, through to Thursday the 19th, that final game. So a bit of a break from the podcast, but thank you.
No, my pleasure, Tim. We'll be back to cover it all. Another short turnaround after that Thursday game, but hope everybody's Arsenal assets score well. Let's hope we see Declan Rice put one onto the head of Gabriel at some stage over those two games to get the payoff for you and me.
Let's go. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Have a great week.